Greetings, Cantaloupe here, Scott McGann, with a video about a math function that I've come across recently. I've used it previously and it wasn't even to my knowledge. Some of you may be familiar with it if you're math enthusiasts. It's the Laplacian Convolution. It's kind of fun to say. It's just a fun phrase to say. But what it does, and it's used in a lot of graphics applications. I've done a little bit of research at this point, and I've familiarized myself with what it's about, and I'll get into why I did that research in just a minute, but it's for the effect of, for lack of a better word, blurring an image or a data set, which is more important. An image is just a data set, but the Laplacian convolution has more applications than just in graphics, and it's used as a filter. Also, I just learned as a way to detect what are called spikes or intensity changes. I'm sorry, I had to think of the word. So say you have a signal or a video or some stream of data, and you're looking for local or general intensity changes in any direction, either to be more or less intense. How do you detect that, especially on a local level, without false positives for noise in the signal? Okay, so a little bit of a complex idea. So you have, say, a finite area of data, a two-dimensional grid of data, if you will, which is changing like a video would. And you want to detect, say, a change in intensity or a spike in, say, gamma or brightness or color or whatever criteria you're looking for, but you don't want to have a false positive with regard to what's called noise in the signal, which could be, isolated pixels or areas smaller than what you're looking for. So anyway, long story short, the Laplacian convolution and other similar functions, basically they just kind of they flatten out the image a little bit per frame or per area. So and the way it does this, it's tempting to think of it as averaging, and there's a very important difference, and then that's what I want to focus on specifically and tie back to what I said earlier about why I'm doing this research to begin with. I'm doing this for a specific application I'm working on that involves reaction diffusion systems. And if you're familiar with that, it's a kind of a very signature, or there's a hallmark graphical appearance to a reaction diffusion system, and you may have seen it at some point. It's used in a lot of different things and a lot of graphics and other science applications too, and you find it in nature actually, and it's got a very particular look to it where you have areas that are separated and they change shape and they grow, and I'm including some of that in this video, so you'll see it. But in my research into the applications I'm working on that use these systems, there's a part of the formula, and these systems aren't proprietary. This isn't some kind of software that a business sells. It's a whole set of math equations and formulas that have been around quite a while, and I don't know the full history of reaction diffusion or who came up with it, but there's been a lot of variations, and they all tend to involve a Laplacian convolution at some point in their equations. And the difference between a Laplacian convolution, because it works on a square, basically, if you're doing a two-dimensional data set, it works on a square, which is usually 3 by 3 pixels or elements or what have you, and your center cell in that 9 square area is set to a relative value of -1. There's a reason for that. I'll get into that. The other squares are traditionally, per pretty much any documentation you're going to find on the internet, set to relative values of adjacent is 0.2, so that's a fifth. 0.2 is 1/5. And then the corners of the square, of the bigger square, have traditionally been set to 1/20th. It's 0.05, right? So the weights around the center cell define the way in which it's going to not average, but perform the convolution. And so you do a distance calculation from the center to the adjacent, and you don't. If you balance the whole grid, that 3x3 grid, if you balance the outer cells to the inner cell based on distance, you get a pretty different number, and it works and almost looks exactly the same when you apply it to the applications, but it's different than the one that many people talk about that you find in textbooks or on websites. So the 0.2 is easy to remember, and the 0.05 is easy to remember, but to be accurate, to perform this function accurately based on distance, which is what it should be doing, if you look at what it's supposed to be doing, you want the numbers are different. I'm going to put them on the screen, and it's important that they're accurate so that the end result is what you want. And it's just kind of funny that these approximations that whoever came up with originally are close enough that they work really well, but they're actually pretty darn far from what they should be. And there are ramifications to that if you're looking for precision, if you're trying to do this function on something scientific or physically accurate. So last piece of this video is an expansion from the traditional two-dimensional data set that this function applies to most of the time to a three-dimensional data set. And you can do that. Many things scale up in dimension. So I've recently applied, this is part of this research, was involved in a project I'm working on to make a three-dimensional reaction diffusion system, which of course still involves and requires the Laplacian convolution, but I wanted to make sure, I had to figure out the corners of you have a cube now, right, that you're trying to perform this on, instead of, because it's a three-dimensional square becomes a cube. So I have extra pieces all of a sudden, and I don't know what the weights are supposed to be for the corners, because those are brand new. They didn't exist before. So I had to do some math and figure it out, and that's how I found out that the numbers that are established for the Laplacian convolution are typically wrong. So those correct numbers are at the end of the video, and the expansion into the third dimension for the corner pieces and the corrected values for the other pieces are also included. So I have the little animation running. If you have any questions, reach out to me, whitehotrobot@gmail.com. And if you're digging into this stuff, I applaud you. I think it's a fun subject, and there's a lot to learn. So have a great day, and thank you for your time.